Well, the band started in late 93, early 94, and that was with Jet, Andrew, and Ken, a different guitarist and a different bassist. And I joined in the summer of 95, and then Ryan joined January of 96. So starting January of 96, it's been the same five people. It's definitely a brotherhood. I mean, there was like definitely growing pains in the early years, but I would say definitely in the early years we probably spent more time together than we did with our families because we were touring above 150 shows a year, close to 200 shows a year. So, we were gone more than we were home. Now everyone has families, so we play closer to 80 shows a year. So still gone a bunch, but yeah, I mean, everyone kind of knows what the other person is going to do and brings to the table. And, all of us, everyone, Ken and Drew still live in the same city in Gainesville, but everyone else has been spread out. So, when we need to get together to write or rehearse, we always do that in the central city. We don't need to be in the same city anymore because we see each other, pretty much multiple times every month because I think that's the one thing that's different about our band and most bands is that in order for us to tour the way we want and run our business and everyone have a family life, we don't go out for 3 or 4 months at a time. We usually play like 6 shows a month all year long, and we've done that, and that also works for our fan base too. So we don't really ever go away. Maybe we take a 6 or 8 week break once or twice over several years, but it's not like, we're gone for a long time.
Absolutely. And because you've been with the band for about or more than 20 years now, where did your passion for music really begin? Where did it come from for you?
I started when I was 10. I had two uncles that played drums, and, I sort of got into it from them one Christmas and something I wanted to kind of do, and that was in New York. And then I moved to Florida, and it started becoming more of a driving force, and I started giving up sports to basically do the music thing. And then one of my teachers, uh, prize students, had gone to North Texas State, which is like a really famous music school in Denton, Texas. Um, and it's kind of up there with the Berkeley and the Miami. And so that kind of was like sort of up there as like, I want to go there. And so, that kind of started it all. And it just kind of grew from there.
How did the song All For You kind of change the trajectory of Sister Hazel going forward?
Well, it basically gave us the ability to tour further and further away from Florida because, Ken wrote that song, I guess, in early 90s, and then it was on like a compilation record of other artists in Gainesville. And then he put it on the white record that was originally a cassette that the band had. And, people started hearing that. And then, we were already touring. I got in the band, Ryan got in the band. And then in May of 96, we went to Memphis to record somewhere more familiar as an independent artist. And we kind of did that. And I kind of took over the marketing and we tried to make it look like a major label had put it out. We had gotten radio stations in a couple of cities in Florida. And so the song, kind of took off in the colleges, and then we started touring into Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina, and Mississippi and Alabama. And so, we were hitting cities every 4 weeks, but, by the song being out there, people already kind of knew the band in the college situation, and then we started before we signed with Universal, we even had regional stations playing the song. So that was the reason for them is we had so much momentum. They didn't want us to like go stop, make a completely new record, and then release it. They basically said we're just going to clean this up and put it out. They signed us in November of 96, and then we released the record nationally with just remixing some things in February because it was all of this momentum that we already had started as an independent act.
When you're not touring, how do you typically spend your time since you said you guys tour a bit less than you used to, but you still are gone a couple months out of the year? How do you spend that time off?
Well, I mean, we're usually gone every month unless there's like some time off or whatever. So we're always playing. But I actually work at a music college in Atlanta. So I'm here doing career services stuff, some marketing things, not actually teaching drums, just because like yeah, I've done some teaching before, but like I always kind of feel like with my schedule, I don't want to be the teacher that misses lessons or is not there every single week. And so like, if I was the one taking the lessons, I certainly, wouldn't want to be missing and stuff. So it's definitely difficult. For people that are on the road to teach because it's just you don't have a normal schedule. So like, so yeah, I've mainly just been working with I also teach a music business class. I've been doing that for several years too, because the industry has drastically changed from when we started. There was no streaming, there was no Spotify, there was no Pandora. It was, basically started with CDs, and then went to iTunes and then streaming platforms. So, really just trying to let them know about the history because it drastically has changed. And, unfortunately, putting music out now is not really an income stream as much as it is as a marketing stream because, with the advent of Napster, which pushed in iTunes and then pushed in Spotify, unfortunately, artists, musicians, and labels, they just don't make that much money on music anymore as it used to because of the streaming situation.
What is something that you recommend for musicians who want to kind of make that breakout in today's day and age?
Well, I think they have to really get out and play live because you have to develop a fan base early because that's the only way that you're going to be able to sort of break through and make some money because you're not going to be able to do it from the streaming situation. And I'm all for the technology and I think it's great. And if people want to walk around and take their music with you, then rather than having a CD collection, but unfortunately, if you buy a book, whether it's on a Kindle or, an iPad, you're still paying money to get that Stephen King or Mike and Crichton book or whoever. Or if you're buying it directly through Amazon, or, if you have a Netflix subscription, people thought the movies were dead, but there's still movie theaters and people going to them. So the thing that is kind of, not fair across the board is that if you are a movie producer or an actor or you are a writer of books, people are still paying for your art. But like if you are a songwriter or a musician, and you release music, people expect it to be free. And so that was really the problem of the record labels of, they should have developed their own universal Spotify and iTunes store, and they could have basically issued all of the licenses and set the price point. And so like you could still have your iPod or your phone and have all your music, but you would have to pay for it. And if you wanted streaming, you would just have a price for all of that. But they basically just gave it all away. And so it didn't just affect us, it affect all the newer generations because now like you can only make money from your touring and your merchandise and if you write your own songs, but publishing doesn't really matter if people are not buying it. So, it's just really, really hard now. You almost have to kind of get songs in TV and movies to try to break through, or commercials, because there's just hard to kind of get through the noise of what's on because now so much is on Spotify where before, so it's an advantage if you want to just get heard, but to like really get to that next level, there's so much stuff there, it's hard to do that.
With your band coming to Columbia here in mid-Missouri at the end of May, is there anything that you're particularly looking forward to performing here in mid-Missouri and having that live audience there?
Well, we always play a mixture of songs. So, like, you're going to get all of the hits that people want to hear. And for us, playing those songs, I think Ken really sums it up great. It's like, it's not us playing those songs, like, because we've played them thousands of times. It's the reactions of the fans to those songs now. That was what makes those songs. But we'll do some covers, but, we have that new record out. So we're playing a wide variety of music from that record. So, that's always fun when you have new music that you can play because we haven't played it live or people haven't heard it live. So, we've been playing about four songs every night from that live record and mixing it up a little bit of those.
That to just kind of go off of that as well with the fans' reactions and everything. From what I've seen, Sister Hazel does so much interaction with fans through events, charity, fundraisers. And what does it mean to have a fan base that is so interconnected with the band and holding the same values and being there to support not only your musical careers, but your philanthropic endeavors?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a huge part of who we are. I think the term hazelnuts kind of came kind of back in 97 when we got out on the road and it was in the summertime. And I think like 14 people decided to spend their summer vacation just going to about 10 or 12 shows in a row. And that's kind of where that kind of came from, sort of what like Fish and the Deadhead had with, fans traveling around. And so, we just played Red Rocks in April, and we had like 700 people come in from all around the country for that show. So, yeah, I think events and people traveling have always been, the Rock Boat, which is our cruise that this is our 25th year. That started as an appreciation for our fan base for giving us a platinum record on somewhere more familiar, and it was like an after tour. After we were done touring, we were going to go out on this cruise ship and take like 700 of our fans. And it was so successful that we started just renting a whole cruise ship the following year and making it a music festival. So, our fans are just awesome that they do that. And I think that's always and always will be a big part of who the band is. In there were fans in Massachusetts and Atlanta and Tampa that would hold or sponsor own Lyrics for Life events, but they were kind of just smaller kind of things. But the Gainesville show has become the big one because we bring in national acts to be part of it, and there's just a lot of auction items for that. So it's kind of been the staple now. We used to do also, COVID kind of shut this down, but we did a Camp Hazelnut where we brought in a bunch of kids that had cancer and going through treatment and didn't really have the ability to do like a real summer camp. And so there was a place outside of Gainesville, and we did this in the fall, back before COVID, where they would come with their families and get to experience canoeing and archery and then music with us. But that kind of all stopped with the COVID situation. But and we do other events. We have another cruise that we do in Europe every 2 years now. It's a smaller version, more intimate kind of thing. And then pre-COVID, we did this ski hang event where we rented this 20,000 square foot house in Lake Tahoe, and I guess it was about 36 people for 3 days, and then we turned it over, and another 36 people came. And so Jet and I did all of the cooking for all of the people. We cooked breakfast and like 5 course dinners. People got to ski and snowmobile. So, we haven't been able to bring that back. So yeah, we're always about kind of doing, and then of course there's the Hazelnut Hang, which is in Isle of Palms in Charleston. That's usually in August. So, you know, it's always good for us to have those events and connect with fans. So, we'll continue to do them and look for other opportunities that make sense.
Also stems and it's rooted in the name. I mean, Sister Hazel. It was, if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was named after Sister Hazel Williams, who ran a homeless shelter and passed
That's
away in
correct.
2016. And
Yeah.
what was the decision behind that? And I guess how did it lead to the connection to want to do all these fundraisers and all these other charitable donations throughout these years?
Yeah, so Ken grew up in Gainesville, and she would run commercials in the 70s for her events and her charities. And, what she kind of stood for, taking anyone in, no matter, what background, what color, and unconditional love. That was kind of, it connected with him when he was writing songs in the 80s and the early 90s. And so I wasn't part of the band back then. But when, he decided to form the band, he just felt like naming it after her. Now, he had thought at that time that she was gone and passed away because there was no more mention of her, but she was actually in Belize running missions around that time. And then she came back to Gainesville and then saw all these posters and everything. And so he actually met with her, and she was totally cool. We actually raised a bunch of money for her as well. But the philanthropy piece was always a part, like if our vehicle could help others, we would certainly do that. But Ken lost his brother at 13 to cancer, so that was like a huge, guiding force of like us starting a charity that would directly go towards, cancer research.